welcome to what is probably the most important episode of ASMR in the best possible timeline that I have ever made so far. Today's episode is going to be about something called Mast Cell Activation Syndrome. I'm going to talk first about how I manage my Mast Cell Activation Syndrome, and then I'm going to tell you about my journey with MCAS, which is the acronym for Mast Cell Activation Syndrome. And today's episode is in honor of the late, great, dearly departed Jake Picker, also known as Bartonella Babe, who was one of my favorite YouTubers and sadly passed away a couple days ago on January 20th, 2024 from MCAS. So I've been wanting to make this video for a really long time, and I just haven't made the time for it, and I would be lying if I wasn't dreadfully remorseful about not making the time for it, because now I feel like I'm always gonna have to wonder, if I made this video earlier, would we not have lost Jake? Not that I knew her, not that she watches my YouTube videos, but maybe the information in it would have gotten to her and maybe it would have helped, but maybe not. So, without further ado, first I'm going to tell you my mast cell protocol that got me from eating just a handful of foods and being really intolerant of everything from like the smoke of forest fires and dust and like almost all of food to not reacting to anything unless it comes from the Costco bakery, and I have no idea what that's about. I don't know what they're doing at Costco. So today is going to be part cup to whisper ramble, part protocol, part personal story ramble, all about all things MCAS. Honestly, my back is hurting, so I'm going to stop that for now. And then maybe, I haven't decided yet, I might start chewing gum at some point. So, first thing is HCl Betaine with pepsin and bitters. I'm not 100% sure if I need all of these things. I kind of think for me it's the betaine, the HCl Betaine, that is the most helpful to me. I've used multiple kinds of HCl. Here's another one that I have. And I'll go through a little bit of like what those do. I just want to give you like a bird's eye view first, though. It's only two things, and then the other one is a CBD, high doses of CBD. So I get this isolate. I get mine from, sorry about the, I get mine from a company called 0 Point Extract, and then I turn it into a tincture, and really, these two things, these simple, very affordable in the world of supplements things, gave me food again, which is huge. If you haven't lived an MCAS story, let me just tell you that, not being able to eat like a normal human being is very like socially isolating. First of all, we don't even talk about that much. That is one of the bigger bummers about it, though. And then it's just hard to get proper nutrition when you can't eat most things. And also it's just a major buzzkill. So illness that claimed the life of Miss Bigger. I'm going to start with what I found first, which was HCl Betaine. Now, when I first started this rabbit hole, I knew that I could break down gelatin capsules better than cellulose capsules, but I couldn't find any HCl Betaine that was wrapped in gelatin. So I started with, I don't even know what brand, in a cellulose capsule. And what I would do, because I didn't know, I should have poured it into water. I know that now, but this is literally acid, like it burns. So I would open capsules and like you would try to put a pill down an animal's throat. I would just shove the capsule as far down my throat as I could, and then chase it with like food and water, and it would just burn the whole way down, which was a vibe because when I started I needed like 9 capsules per meal, I think. So I'd like have to do that 9 times every time I wanted to eat anything. And then finally I found this brand that wraps their capsules in gelatin capsules. So this is my favorite for that reason. Now I'll get into my personal story later and why I can digest gelatin better than cellulose. But if you don't have that problem, a lot of people like this HCl. It is more expensive than the other one. It has ginger, which is good for digestion, inflammation, a million other things. They both have pepsin, which is an enzyme that helps to break down protein. I don't really think that's an issue for me, and I'll tell you more about why later. This one has intrinsic factor though, which is essential for absorbing B12, and I think there's a lot of overlap between like under-methylators, people whose B12 absorption and use doesn't work so good, and not making enough stomach acid. So that's nice that they've included that in this supplement. And then it also is licorice. I assume that's for digestion. I don't remember why that's that. So it's complicated, okay? And I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a researcher. I'm just a sick girl. So, this and like anything medical I ever talk about, it's my story in case it illuminates a rabbit hole for you to go down, and then, do your own homework and research. Don't consider this video you doing your homework and research. This is me like lighting a flashlight for a rabbit hole that you can go down if you so choose to. So this is harder than I thought it would be to tell you about the protocol without my story first, but I'm gonna keep trying. So when I started, the way that the whole internet will tell you to start is like you take 1 capsule before you eat, and if your insides don't burn, then the next time you take 2, and then if your insides still don't burn, the next time you take 3, 4, 5. I worked my way up to 9 real quick, like within days, and that's because 10 burned. So you go until you hit burning, and then you go down 1. And the way that the internet describes this is it will say that, as you supplement stomach acid, your body will be like, oh, you want me to do that? And it'll just start making stomach acid again. And that has not been my experience. So when I first started, I needed 9. And 9 became 8, became 7, became 6, became 5, stayed at 5 for like a year and some change. And then, for reasons I won't get into, 5 turned into 4, 3, 2, 1, turned back into 5, turned into 6, 7, me, I have signals, like somatic signals, that I'm not taking enough stomach acid, and signals that I'm taking too much. So when I take too much, I get acid reflux, my throat burns, and when I don't take enough, I get upper right hand quadrant abdominal pain. I used to call it liver area pain until I figured out through testing that it was SIBO. SIBO is a small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Lovely. And so when I start to feel burning down here, that means that there's not enough acid in my chyme that's partially digested food with acid in the small intestine. And if it doesn't have enough acid, then it feeds bacteria and you get an overgrowth of this bacteria and it hurts, and then food hurts you. And that's where Jake lived. From what I understand, she struggled really bad with MCAS and really bad with SIBO, as did I, until I started this super simple, affordable protocol. Now, it was simple for me because the esophageal sphincter, mine still worked. So there's this area in between your esophagus and your stomach that opens when food is going to go into your stomach, and then it closes so that acid doesn't go into your esophagus. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky, right? Because if you have acid reflux, your doctor is probably advised you to take antacids, which work until they don't. And the internet is filled, like, with, if you want to go down a YouTube rabbit hole, there's so many people that struggled with acid reflux for so many years, and then they start this protocol and slowly reverse their stomach acid issues. So that's more complicated, right? Because when you take one of these, if you have that problem, it might burn, because it's the amount of acid in your stomach that signals that esophageal sphincter to close. And if you don't have enough stomach acid, it just stays open because there's no reason. It doesn't have to separate the two. I have not had to navigate that, so I don't really understand how. I'm just here to tell you that if one burns, go down that rabbit hole and figure out how to take stomach acid. Or maybe you don't start with stomach acid, maybe you start with things that are acidic, like apple cider vinegar and lemon, which are both you're not going to be able to tolerate if you have really bad MCAS. So I don't know how that works, but I do know tons of people have figured it out. And I know one of them, like I have a friend who had acid reflux and then had to go down the stomach acid rabbit hole and figured it out, and now I don't think he needs any stomach acid, so good for him. I think that's everything I wanted to tell you about stomach acid. This is why I haven't made this video, by the way, because I've got brain fog and memory problems, and I just felt like I haven't been alive enough and awake enough to convey this information perfectly. But done is better than perfect. So that's the stomach acid part of it. Serendipitously, just as I figured out I didn't make any stomach acid, or almost any, a friend of mine recommended high doses of CBD, and it's for MCAS. MCAS dose is the only dose of CBD that I know of that's higher than an MCAS dose. Is a mental health dose. I know that they give high, wildly high doses to people who suffer from schizophrenia. That's the only dose that I know of that's higher. So I want to say that I dropper full, if I remember correctly, which, like, who knows, honestly. There's 6 grams in this 1 ounce bottle, I think, pretty sure. And so that's 600 milligrams, no, 6,000 milligrams. Anyway, I think each dropper full is 100 milligrams, and I do, in the beginning, I needed like at least 900 a day. I did 300 3 times a day every time I ate. And now I'm down to, sometimes I'll do 900 again in a day if I'm having like a weird day. Maybe there's a forest fire or something. But for the most part, I do 300 a day. Sometimes I don't even remember to do it. And then I usually wake up in the middle of the night. You know how you wake up like Thursday and you get a drink of water? I wake up and my eyes are swelling shut, so I take some CBD. And when I wake up, they're fine. So now let me get into my personal journey story with MCAS, which maybe I should have started with in hindsight. I don't even know. Oh, by the way, before I forget, CBD, you want to put it underneath your tongue. I put it under my tongue for about 5 minutes. It's supposed to absorb better. I don't know why. I can't remember. I just do what I'm told, okay? Well, I experiment, and if my experience corroborates the advice that I'm given, then I continue to do what I'm told. So, these 2 things changed my life, cured my MCAS, cured my CBD, cured my SIBO, which is the acronym for small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So, going back though to my MCAS journey, so in hindsight, the first time I started to struggle with MCAS is when I was in my moldy apartment. But back then, I reacted to most food, anything with sugar, anything with dairy, anything with gluten. And by anything with sugar, I mean like bananas. Then as soon as I left mold, and like started antifungals and binders and that kind of thing, I started getting food back really quickly, except for gluten. And for years, I could eat anything I wanted to, except for gluten. I went to an allergy doctor at some point, because I have 1,000 diagnoses and health problems and doctors and referrals and specialists. And they did a panel, and they were like, you're allergic to everything. And I was like, everything? They were like, except mold, milk, and meat. I was allergic to every single plant that they studied. And I was like, is this bad? Like, should I not be eating apples and oranges and spinach and potatoes? Like, if they tested for 1,000,000 things, and I was making antibodies for all of it, and they were like, if this food doesn't bother you, just keep eating it. And I was like, cool, doc. This is back when I trusted Western medicine doctors. So I keep eating things. Fast forward a couple years, and I'm noticing the intolerances, right? So the first thing that happened was like this eustachian tube dysfunction. So you have these fluids in your ears. I don't know what they're doing, but I woke up, I thought I had an ear infection. Oh, I meant to start chewing gum for this part. For my personal story part, that was my idea that I had. This is going well. See why I've been putting this off forever. By the way, this sugar-free gum has xylitol in it, and xylitol is a biofilm buster. So that's nice. Anyway, where am I in my story? This I am really bad. Pernicious anemia right now because healthcare in the state of Arizona is a complete third world joke. Like, it's ridiculous. And I have not been went to prescribe me a water-soluble vitamin. They wanted like my blood work and my symptoms to get really bad, and here we are, they're really bad, so they're finally sending me to a hematologist, which still isn't the B12 I need, but whatever, I guess hopefully it's one step closer. So like, yeah, just to say that my brain is not braining, and this is not how I wanted this video to go. But maybe one day I will have a brain and I will shoot it again. And until then, an imperfect video might have saved Jake Baker. I don't know. I don't know her. I don't know what she tried. But, so there I was. Several years ago. Started reacting to food. Oh, I thought I had an ear infection, so I go to the ER. And I'm like, I think I have an ear infection. Gonna get like antibiotics. My ears feel like they're gonna explode. And they look at my ears and they're like, your ears are about to explode. And I'm like, that's not what I expected you to say. What? And they told me to take antihistamines and decongestants and to make an appointment with an ear, nose, and throat doctor. So I did those things and it was fine. At this point, I didn't realize that like food was causing this ear thing. And so I'm taking the antihistamines, I'm taking the decongestants. I see the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they're like, "Oh, word, you have a station tube dysfunction. You need surgery." At this point, I had figured out that finish my sentence for me, someone. That food triggered this reaction. So I was like, why does food do this? And they were like, I don't know, but surgery is the fix. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna let you cut my ears open when you're not even interested in the fact that this is like triggered by food. That's ridiculous. So I just went on a low histamine diet. Like, I figured out from excessive logging like what foods I was reactive to. That led me to the low histamine part of the internet. At this point, I had already been struggling with SIBO for like a year or something. So I was familiar with like the FODMAP diet. Oh my god, FODMAP diet, low histamine diet, that's the amount of food you can eat. You can eat like nothing. Meat, basically. Freshly cooked or frozen meat. So I went back on my low histamine diet until my chronic fatigue doctor at Stanford was like, try ketotifen, right? Ketotifen is a very powerful mast cell stabilizer and antihistamine. So I started taking ketotifen. Huzzah! I can eat again. No one cares about why this is happening except for me and my doctor's care. And I've got so many like health problems that I'm spinning at this point. Chronic mastitis, which is like these insanely painful breast infections. Chronic SIBO, another very painful infection. And now we throw onto it wicked MCAS. It was a vibe. So at that point I could eat again. So I'm like, cool. Until I couldn't. And then I'm like, doc, why is this happening? They're like, we don't know. I go back on my low histamine diet. And I lived on a low histamine diet. I had to have ketotifen and a low histamine diet for like a year. At this point, luckily, my SIBO was like pretty okay. So I could eat things that were low histamine, that were not great for SIBO, like sweet potato and apples. Thank God, because when I have really bad MCAS and really bad SIBO at the same time, it's like a meat diet, basically. I'm trying to think. Butter, I think I could eat. Yeah, that was like it. I love carnivore diets, like my body does. You know, my ego would love to be vegan, but honestly, a vegan diet is kind of like, was a major negative turning point in my health, and maybe one day I'll make a video about that. My body, I can eat meat, and maybe it's because I have O negative blood know that it's very controversial now, but when I was a kid in the 90s, everybody was all about like the blood type diet, and allegedly with O negative blood, my ancestors were like hunters and I can eat meat, which is why it took so long to figure out that I had no stomach acid, because I had a doctor who was like, okay, sometimes when people have wicked MCAS like you do, it's a stomach acid thing. What happens if you eat a steak? And I was like, nothing. And he was like, it doesn't like sit in your stomach like a log. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, meat is my friend. It's the easiest thing for my body to eat. So he was like, okay, then you don't have a stomach acid problem, because stomach acid is necessary for making the enzyme pepsin. And pepsin is what you need to break down meat. Somehow I am making enough pepsin to just devour steak without making enough stomach acid to open a capsule. And so for like a year I'm on this low histamine in and out of SIBO, ergo carnivore diet, and doses of ketotifen, and then I'm needing more and more and more and more ketotifen. I can't remember if I was like on 1 milligram a day, or just like the normal dose. It might be a microgram or something, or a gram. I think it's milligram. So I'm on like 1 pill a day, and I worked my way up to like 4, 5, 6 pills a day sometimes. And I'm so symptomatic. I'm on my low histamine diet, and I never, ever cheated on my diets. I couldn't. It was too painful. My ears were like about to explode. A lot of times I had to sleep sitting up to help. I had really bad tinnitus, really bad throbbing in my ears, especially if I laid down. I woke up looking like the kid from the anaphylaxis page like almost every day. If you go and look up on Wikipedia the anaphylaxis page, there's a kid whose eyes are like swollen shut. That was me almost every single day, despite my high doses of the heavy hitting mast cell stabilizer, ketotifen, and this low histamine diet. And we tried other stuff. I can't remember the name of mononucleotide something. We tried other mast cell stabilizers. I was a mess. Sometimes I'd wake up and like my whole face would be distorted from swelling. Like I'd have like a fat lip, or like half my nose would be like really swollen. Sometimes I'd have 2 black eyes. They call them allergy shiners. I was reacting more and more and more to everything. And I really could have had the same story that happened to poor Jake, who like, her videos are wonderful. Yeah, I think I already said her YouTube is called Bartonella Babe. She's so funny and beautiful, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking what happened to her, because she had SIBO, so that gives you pain when you eat. I mean, the pain of SIBO was so bad. Before I figured out it was SIBO, I knew that food was triggering this, and before I figured out which foods were triggering it, I mean, I was fasting like 20 hours a day sometimes, because I knew that right after I ate, I'd be laid out in pain for hours. And fasting 20 hours a day worked until it just destroyed my endocrine system, which it does if you're a lady, by the way. All these guys are like, fasting's the best, and they don't realize how detrimental that can be to a woman's hormonal system. I'm here to tell you, it can be so detrimental to a lady's hormonal system. It's bananas. But so when I was navigating SIBO, I was not eating for most of the day, and then when I did eat, I was logging everything I ate, and I figured out that like basically carbs were bad for my SIBO, and anything with carbs, anything with sugar. So I was eating a lot of eggs, a lot of meat. I could do dairy for for whatever reason, some people, I had SIBO, hydrogen-based. Some people have methane-based, hydrogen-based, or both. Mine only tested for hydro, and I could eat dairy for whatever reason. This was before MCAS. After MCAS, I could not have dairy. On my MCAS diet was like broccoli, cauliflower, artichoke, turmeric, salt, oregano, rosemary. There's more meat, like all the meat, as long as it was either freshly prepared or like immediately frozen after cooking and then heated up. I feel like I'm missing a couple things, but it is like, oh, did I say salt? It's a short list of, apples and butter. I would put butter on apples, and that was like my dessert. Blueberries, so I had a lot of blueberry water smoothies. And that's just my MCAS diet. Like, I couldn't have blueberries if my MCAS and my SIBO were acting up at the same time. It was really, really difficult. I was becoming more and more intolerant of more and more food. From the MCAS standpoint, my SIBO was largely managed at this point, but my MCAS was like off the hook. I woke up like anaphylactic most days. It's not the same as anaphylactic shock, right? Although sometimes I literally would wake up and like my eyes were swelling shut, my throat was closing, and I'd shove a ketotifen like as far down my throat as I could, or like 4 or 5. And what I didn't realize at the time is the reason I needed higher and higher and higher doses of ketotifen was because my body was not opening the capsules. So I might put 6 in, and maybe 1 would break open and give me the medicine that I needed. Now, thank God that at this time, when like my face is disfigured, like I look very like Quasimodo, like I'm just swollen all over every single day. So thank God that at this time, I had to do a stool test, a comprehensive stool test from doctor's data for another part of my health. And in doing that stool test, you have to get stool samples throughout the week. And so like day number 1, I'm like, damn, there's a lot of pills in this stool. Day number 2, I'm like, there is a lot of pills in my, like I'm taking all these things. I think I'm taking all these things, and I'm not breaking any of them down. So I'm like, oh shit, this is why my ketotifen isn't working. And you do that like 3 times throughout the week, and like every time, just like, how do I even find stool amidst all of these pills? This is bananas. So at this point, I've got like a lot of, like several different naturopathic doctors on deck, and I'm like, yo doc, what's up with this? And honestly, like, I like my naturopathic doctors a lot. They help me so much, but this was so unbelievable that I don't think they believed me. I had one be like, well, if you had that many pills in your stool, then it would mean that you're not making like almost any stomach acid. I'm like, I don't think I'm making like any stomach acid, doc. And then they told me how to start taking this. And again, I'm really, really lucky because a lot of people who have this problem, their esophageal sphincter at the bottom here, there's one at the bottom and one at the top. I think there's actually 2 at the top. Like one here, one there, and another one down here, if I remember correctly. So mine was always working, and I could just pour tons of stomach acid into my body, and I didn't have a heartburn problem. And so at the same time that I figured out that I didn't have any stomach acid, I started taking high doses, or maybe this was like a week or two later, high doses of CBD. Oh, I said I never cheated on my diet. Sometimes I would put a piece of chocolate in my mouth, chew it up, and spit it out. And then like rinse and spit it out. So that year I asked Santa for food back, and I got it like basically overnight. I went from barely being able to eat anything to being able to eat everything. And like I was very low and slow at first because I didn't know what to expect, and I was so super reactive to food. But like everything I tried, I was like, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat this, I cannot eat anything from Costco. I don't know what that's about, like the Costco bakery, I don't know what's going on there. But every single other thing I could eat. And when I tell you that like the first time I went to Trader Joe's after starting this protocol, and like a week or two before, if I had gone, I would only be able to buy like meat and like frozen broccoli maybe. And then all of a sudden you're walking through the aisles and you're like, oh, I can eat anything. And it was such a surreal experience. I'm pushing my little shopping cart and I'm just like, I thought it was all going to be like croissants and candy bars, but the food that I found myself gravitating towards the most and like getting the most joy from was eggs and yogurt. I don't know if that's like the acetylcholine in eggs and the probiotics in yogurt, I don't know, but that's like, I was just like, eggs, yogurt, give it to me. And to this day, that's how I manage my MCAS. If I don't take enough stomach acid, I feel it in my ears, like spider sense, and I feel it in my upper right hand quadrant, blah blah blah, and sometimes I'll feel it in my nipples because no stomach acid was the unlikely and unexpected cause of my chronic milk duct infections through something called the breast gut axis. So like the breast and the gut are connected, so much so that if you test the microbiome of breast milk and you test the microbiome of that woman's stool and the baby's stool, they're all going to be the same. So yeah, taking these two things got rid of my I managed my MCAS, managed my SIBO, and managed my capacity for breast infections. I don't know. It's wild what these two things have done for me. And so with the passing of Jake and Jake's story, she had really, really, really bad MCAS. And she was down to, I think I read 79 pounds when she passed away, and she used a right to die service called MAID. I don't know, I can't remember what that acronym stands for, but she was just so reactive to everything that she was dying from malnutrition, and elected to stop the pain and the reactions. And I don't know if she ever tried either of these things. These things can be wildly helpful for some people and then do nothing for others. So maybe she was one of those that it did nothing for. But when I tell you that this protocol is so helpful for the people that it's helpful for, that I posted like a short video on TikTok a million years ago and Instagram recommending these things, and multiple people have contacted me and been like, what's your Venmo? I need to send you hundreds of dollars. You just gave me all the food back. So for the people that it helps, it's world changing, and I'm one of them. So like with the passing of Miss Picker, I realized that I was walking that same less and reacting more and more. I mean, sleep seemed to be one of my biggest triggers. So when you can't even, I'm like laying down. So when you can't lay down and you can't sleep because you're allergic to those, yeah, it's unreal. It's a very surreal, bizarre experience that I understand. Like, healthy people are gonna be like, what the but if you're navigating like chronic illness life, you know how weird it can get. It can get quite weird indeed, and it was getting I don't want to very weird for me. And thank God that I had that stool test. Otherwise, I might have, been so reactive that I stopped eating and eventually lost my life, like poor Miss Baker. So this is all very weird to talk about and to think about, and I'm so beyond grateful that I stumbled onto what works for me, and I hope that this video can be helpful to somebody else who is struggling with the same kind of things that I was struggling with. Like, I have a friend who's like, but are you in remission? And I'm like, no. If I didn't take stomach acid for a day, I'd be a hot mess. If I don't take CBD for like a couple days, I could usually go like a day without CBD, but if I don't take it for like a couple days, yeah, then my eyes start swelling shut. So I still need these things. I suspect that I will need these things until I can one day properly diagnose and treat the underlying infectious diseases that are causing these things. But it's wildly difficult to find a Lyme or mold literate doctor who accepts insurance. So I've just navigated like patching up the aftermath of all this illness and the havoc that it is wreaked on my body. I'm good at that game. I have my fingers are crossed that this year I will manifest the funds necessary to get good at the other game of actually unrooting these infectious agents that cause all this illness. In Chick's case, she had a diagnosis of Bartonella, which I think it's a parasite. I want to say she got it from a cat scratch, if I remember correctly. You can get it from a cat scratch. I think you can get it from fleas and mosquitoes, if I remember correctly, and ticks. So it's also like a very, very common cause of MCAS. So I would not be surprised if, along with my Lyme exposure that was recently validated by testing, I also have been exposed to Bartonella. Now, what infections are active at this time and need to be addressed will cost thousands of dollars in testing that I have yet to manifest yet. So that is my MCAS story. Yeah, like I said earlier, well, not earlier this year, a couple months ago, I was down to one pill a day. I was so excited, but I was like on an intense hormone balancing protocol at the time, and as soon as I stopped that protocol, I needed like 12 to 15, and now it's more like 9 to 12. I'm not really sure why the hormone balancing protocol did that. I tried to like re-implement the hormone balancing protocol to see if I can go back down to one. I cannot. I don't know what's going on. Might have like dislodged a bunch of metals, might have a bunch of heavy metals circulating around my bloodstream because of evening primrose. I have no idea. Honestly, all of this is a lot to navigate, and I'm navigating it in a vacuum because because I'm in a state where the healthcare is so bad that everybody here talks about it. Like, when you go, like, multiple doctors, I'm like, yo, the healthcare here, and they're like, right, and I'm like, you know about this, and they're like, yeah. And the receptionist, everybody knows that the healthcare in Arizona is, for lack of a better word, just complete dog shit. It's so bad. So yeah, that's my MCAS story. This is not a perfect video, which I really wanted it to be for sick girls like me, but done is better than perfect, and I hope that it helps somebody out there half as much as it's helped me and the people who I've been able to help with it so far. So, as always, thank you so much for being such a beloved part of my best possible timeline. And until next time, I bid you a